Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video I'm gonna be showing you a complete combo guide to my master rank Dark Magician list. I'm also gonna be giving you some tips and tricks on how to play around certain hand traps, as well as how to fully utilize your opening hand. And without further ado, let's get started. So for our first combo we have Shining Dark Magician Girl plus any discard. Now the best card to use as a discard would be Soul Servant. The reason being is that it's going to turn into a draw 2 that can possibly give you access to your other engines or your broken non-engine like Maxi and Draw. It can also draw you a card and enables Dark Magician of Destruction in case your Dark Magician Girl gets negated. For your other discard options, you can discard any of your dead or duplicate cards, and for your non-engine besides Molcharmi Fualos, I would say Super Poly would be probably the best one to discard since it requires a discard itself. We're gonna pretend like we only have Shining Dark Magician Girl and a random discard, and we're gonna start the combo by summoning her, changing her name into Dark Magician Girl, or searching for Shining Sark. Next, we're gonna activate Shining Sark and we're gonna search Shining Dark Magician. Then we're gonna summon the Shining Dark Magician, turning him into Dark Magician of Destruction. Now Dark Magician of Destruction will search for Soul Servant that you'll be using to stack Rod on top of the deck and then draw 2. If you already have Rod in your hand, then you should go for Magician Souls. We're gonna pretend like I don't have Rod in my hand, and we will be stacking him and then drawing 2 cards. Then you wanna normal summon Rod and search for Gaze of Tomias. Now you wanna send Rod and Demo to the graveyard to special summon Magistus Chirozzo from your extra deck, and then synchro summon it and Dark Magician Girl into Baron de Fleur. After that, you're going to use Gaze of Tomias to target and shovel Dark Magician of Destruction to fusion summon into Master of Chaos, which will activate to resummon Magistus Chirozzo from the graveyard. Then, you're going to use both Master of Chaos and Magistus Chirozzo to synchro summon into Crimson Dragon, which will allow you to cheat out Bestial Despairer. Bestial Despair then will resummon Shining Dark Magician from the banished zone. Baron then will target and destroy Shining Dark Magician to trigger its second effect to resummon itself and set another copy of Gaze of Tomias. But you can also set Secret of Dark Magic if you already have another copy of Gaze in your hand. Now, to make it simple for everyone, I want you to keep in mind that this is basically your main plan. This is basically your end board that you want to achieve almost every single time, and everything else will just be you adding more disruptions to it. Sometimes you add more non-engine that you draw with Soul Servant or Magician Souls, or maybe you can add some Primite disruptions. Sometimes you can also fusion or ritual summon into another disruptions. And of course you also have SP Little Knight that you can always make with an extra extender. Now the reason why this end board is really good in my opinion is the loop that it creates. Bestial Despairer will recycle your banished cards into the deck including Soul Servant. Soul Servant then will recycle any DM card including your fusion monsters, Shining DMG, or your Gaze of Tomias. And then you have Gaze of Tomias that will basically always recycle your Shining Dark Magician and Dark Magician of Destructions. This way you guarantee that you'll never end up running out of resources, which give you a better grind game, and it will give you the luxury of minimizing your bricks, because you do have a way to recycle them back if they got banished. I also want you to keep in mind that in a 5-card hand you're most likely going to have multiple starters and or extenders, which means you can easily add more disruptions to your end board, and play around one-to-one hand traps like Ash and Imperm. Now that we took that out of the way, let's continue with the rest of our combos, and then I'll be giving you some advice on how to use your interruptions wisely against meta decks and how to play around some board breakers as well. For our next combo we have Primite Load Reload or Primite Roar. Both of them will give you a similar end board. You want to start by activating Primite Load Reload. Here you have two options. If you have another starter or extender, or if the rest of your cards are good disruptions like Ash or Duel, or maybe Super Poly, you should always search for Primite Ether Barrel and set Drill Beam. That way you will have a better time against a Duel or a FOA while guaranteeing a decent amount of disruptions and follow-up as well. The line that I'm about to show you right now is something you want to go for when you brick on dead cards or duplicate cards and Load Reload is the only starter you have. You want to start by activating Load Reload, searching Primite Roar, which will summon Dark Magician from death. You want to turn Dark Magician into Dark Magician of Destruction and then search for Magician's Rod. Magician's Rod then will search for Soul Servant. After that, you're going to use Soul Servant to stack and draw Magician Souls. Now, you want to summon Magician Souls by sending Shining Dark Magician Girl to the graveyard. And here, you want to activate Soul's effect to send Primite Load Reload to the graveyard with any other duplicate spell that you might have in your hand. This way, you'll have a chance to draw a combo piece like Gaze of Timaeus or some good non-engine that might help you fix your bricked hand. I'm going to pretend like I have no duplicate spells and I didn't draw anything good and continue from there. Now Rod and Souls will be linked for Miasma Necromancer, which on summon will add Shining Dark Magician Girl from the graveyard. Then Shining Dark Magician Girl will summon herself by discarding a card, and she will also search for Shining Sark, which will also search for Shining Dark Magician. From here, you're gonna make Chorozo with Demod and Miasma, and then make Baron with Chorozo and the Dark Magician Girl. Then, you're going to summon Shining Dark Magician and destroy it with Baron to trigger its effect and set the Gaze of Timaeus. It's not an impressive board, but it has follow-up and it has 2 good interruptions, potentially 3 if you have a spell to discard as well. For our next combo we have Primite Ether Barrel. You wanna start by summoning Primite Ether Barrel, setting Load Reload to your field, and then you're going to activate Primite Load Reload to search for Drill Beam. What I like to do next is using Primite Ether Barrel to send the Dark Magician to the graveyard, and then resummoning Dark Magician using Load Reload's second effect to play around more charmy Foalos. This is by far the weakest combo we have today, however, it still gives you a Banish and Negate and follow-up while not having to worry about FOA and Droll as well. We're gonna start our next combo by activating Shining Sark, and then if you have a dead card to discard, I suggest you search for Shining Dark Magician Girl, just so she can search another copy of Shining Sark and turn that dead discard into a potential disruption. Otherwise, searching Shining Dark Magician can also be fine. Dark Magician Girl can also act as a bait that somehow a lot of people still fall for even in Master ranks. Next, we're going to make Dark Magician of Destruction by banishing Dark Magician Girl from our field, and then you want to search for Magician's Rod. We're going to normal summon Magician's Rod, and then we will be searching for Gaze of Timaeus. After that, you're going to link both Rod and Demod to make SP Little Knight and then end your turn. Also make sure to banish whatever cards they have in the graveyard, especially if it's a trap, just in case they play the Dominus cards. Okay, so our next combo can be done with either Preparation of Rites or Primite Roar. You're gonna start by activating Preparation of Rites, searching for Illusion of Chaos, and then you wanna search for Magician Souls using Illusion of Chaos. Magician Souls then will summon Dark Magician, which can also be done by Primite Roar. You're gonna turn Dark Magician into Dark Magician of Destruction, and then you wanna activate its effect to search for Magician's Roar. Magician's Roar then will search for Soul Servant, which we will be using to stack and draw Shining Dark Magician Girl. Shining Dark Magician Girl then will discard the card and summon herself and search for Shining Sark. You wanna next activate Shining Sark to search for Shining Dark Magician, and here I think I made a mistake. You should definitely save Shining Dark Magician and then summon it later. Either way, you're gonna make Chorozo by sending Rod and Demo to the graveyard, and then you're going to make Baron de Fleur using Chorozo and Dark Magician Girl. Baron de Fleur then will target and destroy Shining Dark Magician, which will trigger its effect and then resummon itself and set Gaze of Tomais. I want to say that this combo is rarely used because it's impossible to draw 4 completely dead cards that do not include a normal summon. However, it might come up going second where you already use your hand traps that can be used as a normal summon. Going first, however, you'll either draw another starter, or worst case scenario, you're gonna draw a hand trap that can be normal summoned to use alongside souls. Our last one card combo wish is going to be Magician Souls plus any hand trap that can be normal summoned. You're going to start by summoning Magician Souls by sending Shining Dark Magician Girl to the graveyard. Okay, so here I'm gonna pretend like I have no spells in my hand. However, you should definitely be sending those with Magician Souls to the graveyard to draw cards. This will hopefully fix your hand by giving you other starters, or worst case scenario, it will bait some hand traps from your opponent hand, which is something that we wanna see since we already have full combo. Next, you'll normal summon any hand trap you have and use it alongside Magician Souls to make Miasma Necromancer. Miasma then will add back Shining Dark Magician Girl from the graveyard to your hand, which is our main combo starter. After that, you'll be doing exactly the same thing we did in our first combo line. This combo line is also a rare one, but it does come up a lot when your other starters like Primite Loadly Load gets interrupted. As I said before, in a 5-card hand, you're most likely going to see 2-card combinations way more often than anything else, and that's why I'll be doing my best to cover every line possible next. Our first 2-card combination is going to be Primite Roar and Magician Souls. What I like to do first is activating Primite Roar Shine to summon Dark Magician. If your opponent used Foe against you, you can then choose not to summon Dark Magician and instead send Dark Magician to the graveyard to summon Magician Souls. This way, you'll have an interruption to use against your opponent, and Magician Souls can send any extra spells that you might have to hopefully give you some card that can help you survive until next turn. If not, Then you're going to summon both DM and Magician Souls and make Dark Magician of Destruction. Dark Magician of Destruction then will search you for Magician's Rod, and Magician's Rod will search for Soul Servant. After that, you want to use both Rod and Demon to make Miasma Necromancer and add Shining Dark Magician Girl from your graveyard to your hand. Then, you want to summon Shining Dark Magician Girl and search for Shining Sark, which will search for Shining Dark Magician, and then you can summon him after that. Next, you want to use Soul Servant to stack Gaze of Tomize and then draw 2 cards. Because Rod can recycle itself in this line, here you should use Magician Soul's effect to send extra spells including Shining Sark for extra draws. After that, you're going to make Chorozo using Miasma and Magician Souls, and then make Baron using Chorozo and Dark Magician Girl. Baron can now target and destroy Shining Dark Magician, which will activate to resummon itself and set another Gaze, or Secrets of Dark Magic if you already have Gaze in your hand. Here, you want to use Gaze, shuffling Demon to the extra deck, and summoning Master of Chaos, which will resummon Magistus Chorozo back from the graveyard. Then, you continue the combo by synchro summoning Crimson Dragon, which will beat out Bestial Despair. Now, you can use Bestial Despair to target your banished Dark Magician and summon it back to your field, which will make Primite Roar alive again. Our next combo consists of either Primite Load Reload or Primite Roar plus either Gaze of Tomize or Soul Servant. You wanna start by activating Primite Load Reload, searching for Primite Roar, and then summoning Dark Magician. Next, you're gonna summon Dark Magician of Destruction by banishing Dark Magician. Dark Magician of Destruction then will search for Magician's Rod, which will search for Soul Servant or Gaze of Tomize. Next, we're gonna use Soul Servant to stack and draw Magician's Souls. Magician Souls then will send Shining Dark Magician Girl to the graveyard and summon itself. Now you wanna use both D-Mod and Rod to make Miasma Necromancer and then add Dark Magician back from the graveyard to your hand. Next you're gonna discard the card and summon Shining Dark Magician Girl and search for Shining Sark, which will search for Shining Dark Magician. Next, we're gonna summon Shining Dark Magician, and then use the second effect of Magician's Soul to send both Load Reload and Shining Sark to draw 2 cards. Next, we're gonna summon Magistus Chorozo by sending Soul Servant and Miasma Necromancer to the graveyard, and then we wanna use Magistus Chorozo and Shining Dark Magician Girl to make Burn the Floor. We're gonna use the second effect of Burn the Floor to target and destroy Shining Dark Magician, which will resummon itself and set another copy of Gaze of Tomias from our deck. Next, we're gonna use Gaze of Tomias to fusion summon into Master of Chaos by shuffling Demod from the graveyard. Next, we're gonna use Master of Chaos's effect to re-summon Magistus Chorozo from the graveyard, and then we're going to Synchro Summon into Crimson Dragon. Crimson Dragon then will target Burn the Floor and shuffle itself into the deck, summoning Bestial Despair. Bestial Despair then will target the banished Dark Magician and resummon it from the banished zone, which will make Primite Roar live again. For our next combo, we have either Primite Loadly Load or Primite Ether Barrel plus Shining Sark. We're gonna start by activating Primite Ether Barrel or Primite Loadly Load and go get the other one. After that, you're gonna set or add Drill Beam to your hand with either of them. You can also add or set Primite Roar if you already had Drill Beam in your hand, like I did here. Next, you're gonna activate Shining Sark and go get either Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl if you already have a discard, especially if you add Drill Beam to your hand since it can recycle itself. Next, you're gonna summon the monster that you added and then you're gonna banish it to make Demod. Demod can then search for Gaze of Tomias. However, you can sometimes search for Secrets of Dark Magic, especially if you are under Fualos or if you want to make a permanent Dragoon that can't be banished. Next, you're gonna make SP Little Knight using both Dark Magician of Destruction and Primite Ether Barrel, and then you will sit Gaze and end your turn. For our next combo, we have Shining Sark plus either Soul Servant or Gaze of Tomias. We're gonna start by activating Shining Sark, searching Shining Dark Magician, and then Shining Dark Magician will summon itself. Now you wanna banish Shining Dark Magician to special summon Dark Magician of Destruction and search for Magician's Rod. Now you wanna normal summon Magician's Rod and either search for Soul Servant or Gaze of Tomias, basically the piece that you're missing. Soul Servant then will go and stack Magician's Souls and then draw it. Here you wanna activate Magician's Souls effect to summon itself by sending Dark Magician Girl to the graveyard. Next, as always, we're gonna use the second effect of Magician's Souls to send any extra spells that we don't need to the graveyard to draw us cards. Next, we're gonna use both Magician's Rod and Magician's Souls to link summon into Miasma Necromancer and then get back the Shining Dark Magician Girl that we sent with Magician's Souls. Shining Dark Magician Girl then will discard the card and summon herself to search us our second copy of Shining Sark. From here, we're just gonna continue with our usual combo and then end on the same end board. Now our next combo is going to be Shining Dark Magician Girl plus a way to Magician's Rod. Here we're gonna start by searching for Illusion of Chaos, and then Illusion of Chaos will search us for Magician's Rod. We're gonna normal summon a Magician's Rod and then search for Soul Servant to use it as a discard for Dark Magician Girl. Now we're gonna summon Shining Dark Magician Girl by discarding Soul Servant, and then we're gonna search for Shining Sark. Now we're gonna use Shining Sark to search for Shining Dark Magician and then summon it. Now here you wanna use Soul Servant before making Dark Magician of Destruction because you don't wanna draw into a card that you already searched with Dark Magician of Destruction. And from here we're gonna make D-Mod and then search for Gaze of Tomias. Well, from here we're just gonna continue with our main combo and then end our turn. For our next combo we have a way to Magician Souls plus either Primite Ether Barrel or Primite Lordly Load. The Primite engine is an engine that a lot of other decks likes to play, which is why it acts as a really good hand trap bait. It also guarantees a Banishing Negate and follow-up under Droll and Foa, which means you should always start your combos with the Primite cards. Now after we got access to Drill Beam, we're going to use Magician Souls to send Shining Dark Magician Girl and summon itself. And then we're going to use the second effect of Magician Souls to send Drill Beam with any other dead spell in our hand to the graveyard to draw us cards. Drill Beam then will recycle itself. Then we're going to link summon Miasma Necromancer by sending both Magician Souls and Ether Bell to the graveyard, and then add Shining Dark Magician Girl to our hand. Shining Dark Magician Girl next will summon herself, giving us access to Shining Sark, which will be used to search for Shining Dark Magician. Next we're going to summon Shining Dark Magician and then banish him to make Dark Magician of Destruction, which will be used to search for Soul Servant. Next we're gonna use Soul Servant to stack and draw us Magician's Rod plus another card. After that we're going to use the second effect of Miasma Necromancer to send Shining Sark from our field to the graveyard, and then let us normal summon Magician's Rod and search for Gaze of Tomias. From here you're going to continue with the regular Dispatter line, and after you use Shining Dark Magician to set the second copy of Gaze of Tomias, you're going to use it and Miasma to make SP Little Knight, and then summon Dark Magician with the second effect of Lordly Load and end your turn. Next we have Shining Dark Magician Girl plus either Primite Lordy Loot or Primite Ether Barrel, with Primite Ether Barrel being the better one because it will set Primite Lordy Loot, and then Primite Lordy Loot will search for Gel Beam, which will be used as a discard for Shining Dark Magician Girl, and then it will recycle itself. Now as usual, you wanna start by the Primite cards first, and then you're going to summon Shining Dark Magician Girl, which will give you access to Shining Sark, and search for Shining Dark Magician. Shining Dark Magician then will be summoned and used to make Dark Magician of Destruction, and then search for Magician's Rod. Next, we're gonna use both D-Mod and Ether Bowl to make Miasma Necromancer, and just be careful to not use its first effect, but use its second effect to normal summon Magician's Rod and search for Soul Servant. From here, you're just gonna do the exact same thing as usual, and then end your turn from there. Now during your opponent turn, you wanna have to keep in mind that you always wanna recycle your Magician's Rod, because that's basically your follow-up for next turn. For our final two card combinations, we have Magician's Souls and the way to Magician's Rod. This one is a bit tricky because it's vulnerable to a lot of hand traps. That's why you wanna keep an eye on your opponent's delay if they have any, and then go from there. After you search for Magician's Rod and then normal summon it, here most people will negate Magician's Rod. And if they do that, then you're going to do your regular Magician Souls combo plus any normal summon. If they don't, however, then you should search for Soul Servant and continue the combo that I'm showing in the video. If you suspect your opponent to have a FOA or a Maxi before you summon Rod, or an Imperm Ash or Veiler after you summon Rod, then you should send DM with Magician's Souls and search for Gaze with Magician's Rod, and then make SP and pass. Now if you have an extra spell in your hand, however, you should search for Soul Servant and then use Magician's Souls to send the extra spell to the graveyard and chain Soul Servant to stack and draw Shining Dark Magician Girl. This way, you'll have two ways to access Shining Dark Magician Girl, which means your opponent can't stop you with just one interruption. If your opponent used FOA instead, you're going to do the exact same thing, and then after you summon both Shining Dark Magician Girl and Dark Magician, you're going to draw two with Soul Servant, and then make D-Mod to search for Gaze or Secrets, and then end your turn. Now, one of the key things to become really good at Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel specifically is to understand how to figure out which hand traps your opponent has based on the feed delay they have. That alone can give you enough information to tell you what you should do to play around those cards. If you guys want me to do a guide on how to know which cards your opponent have based on the delay they have, then please let me know in the comment section. Now we made it to our final combo. This is going to be a 3-card combo that I'm going to use to summarize all the important notes in this video. Then I will be talking about how to play around board breakers and how to use your interruptions against mirror decks. First, Always make sure you're starting your combos with the Primite engine to at least guarantee a banishing negate and follow up against the draw. Next, keep in mind that searching for Primite Ether Barrel is always safer than going for combo with Primite Roar, which means if you had a decent amount of disruptions, you should always take the safer route. Next, make sure to never play into Fowa and instead use Magician Souls or Soul Servant to draw as many cards as possible, which can help you against your opponent. And worst case scenario, you can give your opponent a draw 1 for D-Mod if you want to search for Soul Servant, Gaze, or Secrets of Dark Magic. Next, make sure to draw cards with Soul Servant before you make Dark Magician of Destruction to make sure that you're not drawing cards that you already searched. Also, your best discard with Shining Dark Magician Girl is going to be Soul Servant because that can give you access to your other engines or your broken non-engine. And to avoid leaving your opponent draws under Fowa, you can tribute Primite Ether Barrel to send Dark Magician to the graveyard and then summon him back using Lordly Load. When starting with Shining Sark, you should always go for Shining Dark Magician Girl if you have a dead card that you can use as a discard. That way, Shining Dark Magician Girl can act as a bait or search for a second copy of Shining Sark which can be used as a disruption. Next, do your best to send extra spells with Magician Souls to bait hand traps or replace dead cards in your hand with better ones. And last but not least, always keep an eye on your opponent's delays if they have any to get some information about what hand traps they might have. Now, a common mistake that I see a lot of people do is that they use their Gaze of Timaeus right away, which is something you should avoid. You should always use Gaze of Timaeus after you use all your other interruptions. That way, you'll know what monster you want to go for based on the deck that you're facing. This way, you'll also have backup in case your opponent used Forbidden Droplet, Dark Ruler No More, or Super Potty against you. You'll also be making sure that you're not losing all your monsters to a Lava Golem or a Kaiju. Now, after you use your Burn the Floor negate, you should always banish it alongside another monster from your opponent field using SP Little Knight, because when it leaves the field and it comes back, it recycles its Omni negate. Banishing an opponent monster with SP Little Knight will also make this pattern a monster negate, and it can make sure that the monster that you banish will not return to the field because this pattern will shovel it into your opponent's deck. To play around Droplet, you should in general use your monster negates before using your Drill Beam, that way your opponent can't dodge it with Droplet. Sometimes it's also okay to lose monsters against board breakers. Let's say you have Dispatter and Shining Dark Magician in defense position and Baron in attack position, and then your opponent activates Lightning Storm to destroy your attack position monsters. In a situation like this, it's okay for you to lose Baron the Floor instead of negating the Lightning Storm, because there is a high chance that your opponent is trying to bait you to activate a monster effect so he can use Triple Tactic Talent or Triple Tactic Thrust. To maximize your follow-up, you should always recycle Magician's Rod if you can. Baron de Fleur can also shuffle itself back into the deck to resummon Shining Dark Magician Girl for follow-up as well. Now let's talk about meta decks. Against Khotun, you should always try to get rid of their monsters on the field. If they normal summon and activate any of their monsters to search another monster, then you can banish it with SP Little Knight or destroy it with Dispatter if you don't have SP. They always need a Khotun monster on the field to synchro summon, otherwise they can't do anything. Now if they normal summon Q or activated Rotary from hand, then you should definitely use Baron to negate and destroy it. Super Poly is also amazing against Q because it can get rid of it alongside the monster that it summons. If they activated the Khotun field spell, then you wanna use Gaze of Timaeus to make Magic Dragon and destroy it right away so they don't get an extra normal summon. Otherwise, you can make Dragoon to make sure that they can't get a monster on the field. You can also use Drill Beam to get rid of their monsters, especially if they normal summon one without using its effect. And if you have Ash, then you should always save it for the spells. Also, make sure to be careful of the Khotun Synchron because they can use it to dodge your interruptions. That's why you wanna save the Baron Negate if you don't have Ash. Also, if your opponent used Effect Veiler against you, that probably means he's playing Khotun. Draco Tail and Blue Eyes also love to play Effect Veiler, however, they are not as popular right now. Against Vanquish Soul K9, you should always negate and destroy Raisin, trying to add a card from the deck to their hand, which will also prevent it from using its secondary effect to destroy our monsters. Then, this Dispatter can also destroy any of their monsters, including the K9 monsters that activates in hand. The K9 monsters wants another level 5 monster on the field to XYZ summon, which makes banishing one of them or destroying one of them with Dispatter or SP Little Knight really good as well. Also, make sure to not activate Magician's Rod in the graveyard so they can't use Azuna and Lupus against you. Most of the K9 monsters do not activate on summon, which means you can use Super Poly to get rid of those monsters before they activate their effect. If you didn't manage to set up much against them, you can try to at least make Magic Dragon to survive until next turn because they can't out it. You can also use its Spell and Trap Destruction to stop the Vanquish Soul field spell and the K9 continuous spell. And last but not least, always keep an eye on the attribute that they add or reveal in their hand. Now against Yummy, you wanna negate and destroy both Yummy Snatchy and Cupsy Yummy. Sometimes they can make and not activate the effect of Snatchy, which means they are trying to summon more Yummy monsters from the hand. That's why you should get rid of it using Drill Beam if you can. Now if you have Super Poly, then you can wait for them to summon another monster and then get rid of both of their monsters together. And negating Yummy Cupsy Way, trying to bridge its way from other decks into the Yummy engine is also something you wanna keep an eye on. Also be careful not to use your targeting interruptions against their Synchro Yummies because they can dodge them if they have a Yummy monster in the grave. Now Magic Dragon can also be deadly against them because they can't out it without the field spell that Magic Dragon can easily destroy. Against Mitsurugi, you wanna negate Saji, activating to search for the Mitsurugi spells. Destroying Habakiri using Dispatter can also be good because they will have to have other Mitsurugi monsters in the hand to use their spells. Now in Ryzeal Mitsurugi, you wanna make sure that you negate the Xyz monsters that are trying to bridge between the two engines. Next we have Elf Note, which is a bit similar to K9 where you wanna get rid of their monsters before they activate their own field effects. Cutting their access to their tuner monster is also very important because the deck doesn't work without it. Also keep in mind that most of their main deck monsters are spellcasters, which means using Super Poly can be deadly against them if you already have Chorozu in the extra deck. And lastly, the deck does play continuous spells and traps, which makes Magic Dragon a really good option against them. Against Sky Striker, you want to use your interruptions against Linkage, trying to summon a Sky Striker Link monster, or engage when they have 3 or more spells in the graveyard. Keep in mind that a lot of times they will try to bait your monster activations so they can use talent and thrust against you. A common play they usually do is that they activate something to bait your negates and then chain Linkage to send the bait to the graveyard and summon one of their link monsters, which is why you should always focus on Linkage instead. You can always use Drill Beam to negate the card that they are trying to send to the graveyard with Linkage, which will stop 2 cards with just 1 effect. The deck also loves playing Droplet and Super Poly, so always keep an eye on those cards as well. And lastly, if they manage to steal one of your monsters or use Super Poly against you to fuse into one, that monster can be a problem for them because they need to control no monster in the main monster zone to use their spells, which means you can easily win if you keep that monster in their field. Next, against Radiant Typhoon, negating the activation of Vision, trying to draw 2 cards is always a decent option since it will prevent them from drawing into those broken quick play spells to break your board. You also want to try and destroy their monsters using Dragoon, Baron or Dispatcher that are trying to summon from hand. Denying their access to MST if they were trying too hard to get one can also be really deadly against them because they need it in the graveyard to special summon their monsters. Also, getting rid of their on-field monsters is also really important because they need them to tribute summon Curseia or link summon into Aurora. Now, out of their little monsters, negating Eldam can deny them access to Curseia if they don't have one in hand, which can hurt the turn a lot. Also, Magidragon is also a really good monster to use against them since it can get rid of their continuous trap and their set spells as well, while gaining attack from all the spells in their graveyard. And lastly, I'm going to quickly mention some other decks that you might face. Against Blue Eyes, making Dragoon or Magidragon is extremely powerful because they can't get rid of them. They are also very good disruptions since you can negate wishes from adding 2 cards, or destroy True Light, which can destroy all of their monsters if they have any in the field. Negating and destroying their first normal summon can also be really impactful. Against Malice, you wanna stop those Malice names from generating bodies and always get rid of their link monsters to stop their extenders from summoning. Against Draco Tail, negating their fusion summoning effects will pretty much also stop the deck. Magidragon can also be a really good option against them when they set their spells after the fusion summon. And lastly, against Exosister, stopping Martha and Betrayal should guarantee you the win. That's pretty much it. I hope you guys find this video useful as I try to do my best to cover everything about going first with this deck, and I will try and cover going second soon as well. Also, please feel free to give me your feedback in the comment section as I read every single one and I reply as well. I'm sorry for the sound quality and please don't mind my English as this is not my first language and I'm not comfortable speaking it that much yet. Also, thank you guys so much for all the amazing support I have been getting lately despite the lack of uploading on my end. I unfortunately had exams, which is why I wasn't able to make any content for you guys. And last but not least, if you want, you can support the channel by leaving a super chat or becoming a member in the channel. Well, that's pretty much covers everything. Thank you guys for watching and as always, please subscribe.